Take yours. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Planning Commission for the City of Hudson for Thursday, March 26th. Meeting is called to order. First order of business, discussion and possible action on March 12th, 2015 meeting minutes. Is there any changes, addition, or motion to approve?
I will move to approve.
Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is discussion and possible action on concept development plans for Hudson Dog Care, 2300 Jackboro Drive, 1,500 square foot building, resource logistics.
I got, should be 7,500 square foot building.
Yep. I thought that was,
Typo on the agenda.
yep.
The
Make note of that, please.
location of the proposed dog care facility in Sinkford Business Park. This is Old Highway 35, Jackboro Drive coming in, and Jackboro Drive, so it's at the corner, proposing a 7,500 square foot facility. The outdoor run area would be on the south side of the building, parking on the north, with potential for parking on the north of that. Just a few of generally the issues from development are pretty minor in regards to storm drainage. There's some storm drainages ended up going over a curb. I'd rather see it directed so it comes out, gets into the stormwater system versus going over the curb. There's a few minor water and sanitary. The sanitary sewer line's relatively shallow. We're suggesting that the sanitary line be insulated just to help out during the winter months. Other than that, Mr. Ryan Shirley, representing Resource Logistics, who's the owner of the lot, is here tonight to answer any questions or review. Again, general appearance of the building. This is a perspective from the northwest corner. This would be the front entrance. On the north side, again, the run is over on the south side. Something we would suggest that when the final plans come in is that because there'll be additional development in this vacant lot to the south, this area of landscaping be a little bit heavier. Also might provide some cooling effect during the summer months for the dogs which are outside. Again, Mr. Sherwood here tonight to answer any questions. Recommend approval of the concept development plans with modifications per the city staff review.
So moved?
Is there a second?
Yes.
Discussion. Again, this is preliminary.
This is concept.
Yep,
It
concept
comes
plan.
up.
Yep. Anybody, Fred, anything you see that you,
No.
okay. Frank, anything?
Except with Denny's
Yeah.
stipulations,
Yeah.
of course, yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Discussion possible action on application for rezoning part of commercial known as the Hudson Golf Club, located north of Cooley Road and west of Carmichael, from R1, one family residential district, to PRD Plan Residential District and B2 General Business District, and to amend the 2009 City of Hudson Comprehensive Plan to change the land use designations from recreational commercial to 1 and 2 family residential, medium density residential, and general commercial. Hanson Brothers LLC. Mr. Darnold?
Tonight, Debbie Delander from Hanson Brothers 12 is here, and also John Rass from Hudson Homes. At the last discussion, there was some concern expressed on the potential commercial zoning, particularly because part of that property is elevated about 30 feet above Cooley Road, and what the commercial development may look like. So they're here tonight to talk about that general concept of commercial development, and then I think we, open it up for discussions on how you want to proceed with potential recommendations to the Common Council. So, John and Debbie, would you like to review or go over what the general commercial concept is? Again, this would be an illustration of development, just similar to their proposed residential, it'd still have to go through review processes and so forth if the zoning was changed or is changed. But again, I think there's some numerous concerns expressed by the Planning Commission. This gives them an opportunity to respond to those concerns that were expressed.
Thank you, Denny. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. John Rask with Hans Hagen Homes. We've been working with Hanson's to come up with a general concept for the site, as you requested at the last meeting, to give you an idea how the site could potentially be developed. There are no end users yet for the site, so the buildings you should see are just illustrative in some areas in which parking lots and so forth could be located on the property. There's certainly many iterations depending on the end users here. This could be a corporate campus, it could be retail, it could be medical office, it could be a lot of things, you know, as the market evolves. It hasn't been exposed to the market, so we don't have an end use, but certainly uses consistent with your B2 zoning would be appropriate. The final kind of site elevation here hasn't been determined either. It is up higher. It's likely it will come down some. It will come all the way down to the elevation of target. I don't think so, but there's certainly ability to adjust that grade, again, depending on who those users are and how their particular buildings fit on that site. One of the items of discussion at the last meeting was access into the site. Since we were here last, we've identified another potential access. You know, originally we had the three. We had the main access off Carmichael, a future extension to the north, and then a connection to Ward Road. Also have looked at the feasibility of a connection here just to the east of Applebee's, where there's a city stormwater pond. And this road could shift really either direction in there. And the pond could be expanded or relocated into an area here. Or potentially across the street. So it's a matter of just replacing that pond for that connection. The sight lines are very good here, so the connection, I think, would be beneficial to the commercial as well as to the neighborhood in general. So I think with that, you know, we've looked at all of those connections and feel that there would be adequate access for the site. We are having a transportation engineer review the site now in terms of the overall traffic, so that as we get into specifics of the design of these intersections, we know how they function. It's really a matter of final engineering design in terms of how many turn lanes do you need, what's the stacking distance, and so forth. He's looked at it. We're confident it can work and that it's not going to overload the road network as it's been planned with WSDOT and the Carmichael extension. So we'd certainly have that information probably by the time it went to council, or certainly as part of the final plat or preliminary plat when you get into the actual design. I understand we're just at the land use level discussion now, so some of those details would certainly be forthcoming. We have worked on some transition and buffer areas between Hans Hagen Homes and Hanson Brothers to make sure that the uses here are compatible. We talked last time, and it wasn't illustrated very well on our drawing, but there is a kind of a ravine in here that is, it perhaps as heavily wooded as this, but the idea would be to establish that buffer, preserving the existing trees in this area, and then supplementing it with additional landscaping. So that gives you a little idea of that separation that can occur there. The other couple of issues that were raised was building height, given the topography of the site. We've proposed some covenants for the property that would restrict the building height to 45 feet. On a typical retail building, you're probably going to be around 30, 35 feet in height, but there may be elements of that building that come up higher if there's a front facade treatment or something that extends up. So we wanted some flexibility, or there Hanson did in working with their architect. And then we proposed a restriction on sign height to 30 feet, and I think the city's ordinance is 45 feet. So under the ordinance, you could do a 60-foot building, and what we're saying is 45 feet or 3 stories. Now if it was an office building, it could be 3 stories. Again, I don't think you'd see that out of a retail user. So Certainly from our perspective, we want to make sure this works for the future residents. We're the ones that are going to be selling the homes, and we need to show our potential customers how that transition and relationship works. And in talking to Hanson's about that, we feel that the conditions that we came up with are going to be adequate to provide that separation and buffer and really help to integrate the commercial into the neighborhood. You need the separation, but again, as we talked about last time, I think there's some benefit to having shops and things that residents can walk to in the neighborhood is not always, can be a positive thing if it's done correctly. So I think those are to highlight the changes or I guess response to some of the open-ended comments from the last meeting or things we needed to respond to. That's kind of the brief overview, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Do you think that would cause the need for a light on Cooley Trail then, or down in that area? Would that cause the need for a lighted intersection?
I don't know, but we would have an answer on that from the transportation engineer. They will look at the peak turning movements here as they distribute traffic from this intersection to here to here. They would be able to answer that. My gut would say no, but until they gave the answers, I wouldn't want to say that for sure. They might.
I got would say yes.
Okay. I was out there today. There's certainly traffic there. So.
I think that's gonna be the main, that and Carmichael will be the two main areas.
Well, the other part that I have been looking at, after seeing this, is that, you put a light in there, there's gonna be another new light up on Carmichael too. So what's gonna be the shortcut around that whole situation, running through that subdivision? It's gonna be the shortcut to avoid all those lights and that congestion up on Carmichael. So, I mean, that's just human nature. I mean, you wanna get around it, so how do you do it? You run through the subdivision.
I don't know where you're gonna go, Fred, because if there's a stoplight there and a stoplight up there, because there will be a stoplight up there.
Yeah, but the traffic and all that, so, but I mean, you see what I'm saying, you'd cut through, you don't think so?
Well, what are you gonna accomplish if there's a stoplight on Carmichael, and there's gonna be, I think there will be one on on Cooley.
Well, there's already two up on Carmichael, I mean,
Hey.
you'll add a third,
Correct.
so
I mean,
you,
I don't think there's any, if the land to the north gets developed there, and again, we're kind of way ahead of ourselves.
right, I understand that.
But I would guess there is a proposed stoplight at that interchange.
There is,
Yeah.
we've seen that.
Yeah, so,
One of the thoughts in just looking at this, the road could maybe come up here, and this could curve in here and through, and then this road could curve into it, and then curve into it here, so that it wouldn't be a cut through to the neighborhood. Because now you'd have to come in, stop, do a left, come up, stop, do a left. And I think you could slow that, or make it less desirable, and keep, the retailers like the traffic, so they'd be glad to take them. So I think there's probably some, depending on the final engineering design of those intersections, I think we could accomplish
And you've
that.
seen a lot of subdivisions today where they make the roads undulating, and they do that intentionally to keep people going slow. That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
anyone else have questions? I have a couple, but go ahead. So elevation changes, I think that would be something that I think would be really good for us to see from, let's say, the east, northeast side, looking towards your development, and what it would look like potentially as far as our height. And again, one of the things that we talked about, if you're on Carmichael Road and you look up and you see these buildings, are gonna look maybe out of place. But I see you've got some trees in there and some, I like what you've done. I like the other entrance. But I'd like to see some elevation, maybe from your part of, or from one end to the other, just to get a different perspective on how it's gonna look. I assume you're going to, you've got a traffic engineer that's gonna be doing those, okay?
Yep.
And then my last item, which I sound like a broken record, how do we get into the park?
Yeah, I think, we talked before, and I think that's gonna have to be fleshed out.
Okay.
Is it full-blown public park? Is it just a public trail?
Right.
Is it private open space? Is there, depending on the use of it,
Yep.
can there be some access points at other spots? So I think
Okay. We can work
we
that
understand
out.
that,
Okay.
and we need to understand, we need to work through that.
Okay, Go ahead.
So one of my questions was about the park.
Yeah.
Too. So then I guess it sounds like according to Denny's notes that, you know, we can rezone only part of it too, if we don't like the whole plan, right?
Yes, you have a variety of options.
Yep. Yes, Frank?
At the present time, up on the bank, up above Target and so on, where you have that, what's the slope back behind that? Is that on a hill, or is that relatively, once you get up 30 feet, how far does it run before it tails back down again, before it drops off?
It comes up, and there's kind of a little lip there, and it comes back down. It kind of undulates through there, but then this comes back down. So the bottom of this ravine is pretty comparable to this. So if you look at the elevation of this parking lot, I think it's an 860, and basically the bottom of this ravine would be an 860. So if this site was lowered, you're not chopping into a hill or anything. You'd be dropping this side down, and then you just have a slope coming back up toward the residential. So it really is pretty flexible in terms of how you could adjust the site.
Because you're gonna change some of the stormwater issues down there, all of that.
Yeah, because there's the pond here, so some of that would have to come back down to a series of ponds that would be down here. This would drain down and back out this way. Everything really wants to come back down and exit the site here where there was.
Okay.
Dumb question. When Target and the stores were put in there, that was all excavated and dug out. Brought it down to the level that it's at, where it was at the upper level at one time. Would there be any consideration to excavating that entire area and getting that down to a level that's already existing there with the other thing like that? I know it's moving a lot of dirt, but it's just an idea. Gotta ask the question.
Yeah, I think as we looked at the final engineering of that, we could. I know in talking to the Hansons, they'd like to see it lowered. How much it can be lowered and what are those final elevations, I think we'd have to look at. But I think it could be done. It's just a matter of where does the material go and how much is it? And does that make sense for the site to do that? Certainly something I think they would like to explore in more detail if this is found to be an appropriate use.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Mayor, I know I was
Yep.
late tonight, but has there been any public feedback or comment from neighbors or anything about concerns or questions about?
We have a public hearing on the 13th.
Yeah, the Common Council will do public hearing on the 13th. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience tonight that
Yeah.
they're here tonight to comment, but no, we have not received any additional.
Is there anyone? Yes. John? If you want to come up to the microphone so on TV can hear you. If you could give us your name and address.
John Olson, 1717 Laurel Avenue. I'd be curious what kind of commercial you're expecting or proposing would be in there. I mean, as far as people walking to it, I mean, how many coffee shops or pizza places or whatnot do we need? So that'd be one of my questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess in terms of end users, we don't have specific users identified. The B2 zoning allows a variety of office, retail type uses. Frankly, as I think we've looked at the site today, I'm not sure in today's market that there's an end user out there. So I think it's probably a site, given its size and proximity and to the freeway and location, it may take some time to build out. I don't know what the Hanson's expectations are for that, but retail and office just hasn't rebounded as well as maybe housing has in the last few years, and I think it's probably a few more years out. But I think the visibility of this site and its position in the community, I could see it being, you know, a corporate campus type site or that type of use. Hard to find those people. That's kind of a one-off deal, and there's just not that many people to do it. But if you were a corporation looking to locate in your community, this is a pretty high amenity site, and I could see somebody being attracted to that kind of use. I don't want to say tonight, say that's the only use and that's the best use, because it may be other establishments that look at it. for a variety of different uses, but I think its location and access just make it attractive for a variety of users.
Good. Any other questions? Denny, any thoughts?
Well, again, what they're requesting is the B2 General Business District. They've offered, at least suggested, a possibility of private covenants restricting uses. If the city zones the property to B2 General Business District, they're entitled to the development standards of that district, which means a possibility of 60-foot high buildings, 40-foot high signs. You know, is there a possibility of restricting the private covenants? Yes, I guess I'd like to discuss that with the city attorney. There might be a way, I just don't want to discuss that at the planning commission meeting tonight. I'd prefer to discuss it with the city attorney first and then maybe bring back a recommendation. So I don't know where your comfort level is on the zoning considerations. I did suggest to John this morning that the public hearing is scheduled for April 13th. If the planning commission doesn't feel comfortable with making a recommendation, you're pretty much limited to making a recommendation tonight or early next week, or the Hanson Brothers 12 asking or approving an extension of planning commission review period, which by our zoning code is permitted, which would allow the Common Council to move ahead with the public hearing on April 13th and give you 1 or 2 more meetings to take a look. I'm not saying, maybe you're ready tonight and make a recommendation, I don't know. But if you wanted more time to explore the commercial aspect of it, give myself an opportunity, because this private covenant issue, at least what they proposed when it came up this morning, for me to visit with the city attorney in regards to that. An extension through May 26th of this year would give you a possibility of 2 or 3 more meetings to look at it. Now, if you could go to the first meeting, which would be February 16th, decide your recommendation, go to the council, and they can move ahead. It just
April
or April 16th. Yep. I'm sorry.
That's right.
But so by asking an extension, if they ask for an extension through that time period, they give you 2 or 3 opportunities to look at this. This is a pretty significant issue. Again, the commercial development there could possibly be very well done, or could be our biggest headache, depending on how it's done. The devil's in the details on this area of development, if it's commercial. The other considerations are not to recommend the commercial zoning. If that's the case, then where it's one family. Are you just going to leave it that, or are you going to recommend the planned residential development? I guess at this point, I would just assume the Planning Commission takes some additional time if they want to ask for the extension, and take our time and give a little more time to making a decision.
Who would ask for the extension?
Hanson Brothers have to. They're the applicant. They have to ask for the extension. We cannot ourselves. We're in a 60-day time period. We have to give our recommendation to the council. If the applicant asks for the extension, then that gives us some additional time.
Without the extension, then we would not be having a recommendation unless we did it next week.
Correct.
Right? For the council. And I think we need to do our job and make a recommendation, one way or the other, don't you think?
I think we should postpone.
Okay, but at some point.
And make a decision, but I don't feel comfortable in making that decision.
Okay.
now.
Really, the question is to Hanson Brothers, are they going to ask for an extension? Because if they don't ask for it, we're back here next week.
Next week,
Making
so-
a decision.
I guess that's what we'll if
We'll
that's.
find out.
You deal with it, yeah.
Yeah.
So is the,
Well, they got a representative here tonight. I don't know if they're willing to speak to it, but the mayor and I did receive a memorandum from the attorney for Hanson Brothers suggesting that they may be open to that.
Yeah.
So is there, Deb, are you able to,
yes, we would.
okay. All right, good.
Could I just ask the
Yep.
question? So the additional information that we're looking for before we make a decision is the issue that just came up this morning?
Possibility of private covenants, how that might be addressed.
Okay, and then was it the elevation issue?
Elevation issues,
All right.
correct.
Just so we're clear on what.
Yep.
it-
I know,
what the
I
additional
know
information
Mr. Vance, one of our planning commission members, not in attendance tonight, did send me an email. He was asking questions on the elevations, grade changes between Cooley Road, the existing commercial development, and what the elevations may be. There were some concept developments that are a little more detail presented to me, and I presented some of those elevations to Mr. Vance. But yeah, we could, some of that information, I would have more time to put it together so we can discuss it.
Well, one last point I want to bring up, and I seem to be a broken record on this, is the accesses to the development. I mean, we seem to be stuck on 2 or 3, and I just think that if you could get another access to that area from some direction, that would solve a whole bunch of problems, and I just can't see why we can't come up with something like that, that something can't be brought in to come in from the west side or something to have it more accessible. I mean, you have more options of getting in and out of there that rather than be restricted down to 1 or 2 ways. I feel that's very important, and I don't know.
Where's it gonna come from?
Well, there's an area the city owns between Grandview Drive and the western side, up where this suggested city park's at. The city is city parkland, however, the grades, the wetland conditions, so forth, may not allow the road to be developed through there. That would be one possibility, but the feasibility, well, we aren't going to spend a lot of time and dollars on feasibilities at this time, so, but that is a possibility.
Well, I feel that's very important.
Yeah, and I think
I really do.
they did I think, a good job of addressing that extra one. I mean, that's a big deal. I think that really improves the whole situation.
Well, it's better.
Yeah, well, it's way better than,
Yeah.
in
No,
my
I agree.
opinion, but, okay. If, any other question? Frank, did you have another question?
Because I really feel that they've addressed a lot of the issues that we brought up
Yep.
at the last meeting, which is
Yep.
great.
Just to reiterate, this does not have anything to do with the agreement that, restrictive covenant. This is just a zoning issue. Yep. Okay?
So is there a motion on the floor for postponement?
And I'll second it.
Well, is there a motion first? Is someone gonna?
No, Pat.
Pat made it,
I'm sorry.
and then I seconded it
Okay,
to postpone.
okay.
Do we need to add anything about why we're postponing or what we're looking for?
Well, are we voting for
Well,
postponement?
I think you clarified
There's a
that.
motion on the floor, so.
Yep, postponement, yep,
I think you clarified that.
yep. You feel comfortable with that?
I mean, I think we just have to include that, if you're
Yeah.
comfortable in the motion, what the additional items are.
Yeah,
Subject to the receipt of the letter from.
the letter and your review of them and your ability to make a recommendation on it.
On the commercial part? Okay. Is that okay with, everybody understand what the motion is? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to discussion, possible action on petition for annexation of 42 acres located in the town of Troy, south of Mare Road and east of Carmichael Road. Lee family.
Is there a representative of Creative Homes here tonight? They were made aware of the meeting tonight. It must be. Must be big Wisconsin fans. I mean, is there anybody in the audience that has a concern or wants to express anything on the Lee annexation request? Do you want to speak, or since you're here tonight,
If you
you'll
come
need to
to-
go to the lectern, please.
If you could give us your name and address, that'd be great. Thank you.
Tom Schmelz, and we reside at 305 Riverview Drive. And you've heard from another neighbor, I think in a previous meeting, Doug Rowan, where we've kind of have an association of folks in our area. And I don't know if we're opposed to it. There's some easement issues that we have some very grave concern over based on the proposed plan presented by Creative Homes. So if that proposed plan was to go through, we would definitely have some concerns. So I think that I was here this evening to hear what the city has to say and to learn more about the process.
Okay.
Well, I'll reiterate my remarks from last meeting. The city would have no reason to not honor the access easements going into the properties. I'm assuming, I haven't done the research, I put that burden on Creative Homes to provide any easements or on the property or the property owners, but we're working with the assumption that the easements are properly filed, that the properties to the west have proper access. The city has no reason not to honor those easements. We would work in relation if the property is annexed. We're currently working on the final annexation agreement. There's a couple of financial issues that we're trying to work out. One has to be with deferred assessments, and we know what the amount is, but we're trying to work on, because that's a 1990 project, you got 25 years of interest. You can imagine if you compound interest, the assessments come out to $365,000, and who's going to pay that, for crying out loud? But so there's another financial issue, and that's the reconstruction of Mare Road. Our city engineers provided an estimate of approximately $465,000 for that reconstruction. They've been notified of that. That doesn't mean they pay for that, but we're trying to put them on advice prior to an annexation being agreed, if the city agrees to annex the property, what the potential cost implications are there. So those are the things we're working on right now, but you know, there won't be any decision tonight. I'll recommend postponement because they're simply not here to discuss the issue. So,
Danny, on the question of the easements, you know, we've been given this layout and plan what they want to do with it, but if in fact there are legal filed easements, that could alter this plan. In other words, as presented, this means nothing if there's easements.
That plan's purely illustrative of what they'd like to do. I mean, they'd have to come in, they'd have to get plat approval through the city of Hudson. You know, those lot arrangements, lot alignments may change. Again, the western 18 acres is in the National Scenic Riverway. There's density requirements. They're much different than what the typical city density standards are, unless the NR 118, the National Scenic Riverway regulations or administrative rules are changed. The city has to enforce those standards. So that could significantly change that plan also. So that's just an illustration of what they'd like to do, but it doesn't mean that that's what the city needs to approve.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
What is the process moving forward then?
Well, it basically come back, planning commission will generally makes a recommendation. Then the recommendation would go to the common council. Planning commission doesn't deal with a lot of financial issues. That's dealt with by the common council. But typically, the city attorney and I prepare a draft annexation agreement that'll go to the Lee family. They'll have to agree. We want to have them agree to the terms of the annexation agreement prior to the common council acting on it. If they agree, then we'd take it to the common council. They'd have to approve it by ordinance consideration. So you're most likely probably not going to be a final decision till probably mid-May now. First part of May, mid-May at this very soonest.
And how would the city determine economically if this is good for the city? I mean, you've got water treatment issues, you've got Mare Road issues.
We're dealing with all those issues.
Okay. So will that be public knowledge then?
Oh,
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Okay.
Every annexation, everything we do is always out in the open, and how much it's going to cost and impact on our sewer. That's just part of the process.
Okay.
So
Good. Well, I guess there's no vote or anything happening here tonight anyway, so
doesn't look that way.
I appreciate you answering my questions, and
Thank you for coming.
we'll just stay tuned.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Recommend postponement.
I make that motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Anything for future agenda items? If not, I'll entertain a motion to to adjourn. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, are you thinking that there's still gonna be a meeting next 31st of, okay, very good.
A yes or a no?
No.
I
Move to adjourn?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you. I'm gonna give you everything here.
Good job.